Number 1. Fame means nothing without purpose. At the start of the first Cars movie, we meet a very rude and arrogant version of our friend Lightning McQueen. The then rookie was enjoying every bit of his new fame. McQueen loved being in front of the cameras and always bragged to everyone about how good he was whenever he got the chance. However, behind all of the flashiness is a lonely and purposeless car. We come to understand this better after his call with Harv, who asks McQueen about his friends, but he couldn't point even a single car out. McQueen wasn't more than an empty race car that used fame, speed, and public attention to make it through every day. Until his trip to Radiator Springs, Lightning McQueen actually only raced for the thrill of it. He wanted to be the best, and was actually good at what he did, but there was no actual reason why. He didn't have a purpose. In real life, a lot of famous athletes, actors, and celebrities actually live their lives like rookie season McQueen. They allow fame to swallow their personalities, leaving them with nothing but an endless pursuit of fame. However, McQueen's empty fame is nothing compared to what happens when society completely rejects you. Number 2, society's outcasts become the greatest threats. In the Cars series, the biggest world threat that we witnessed was the Lemon Cars gang. They were set to completely destroy the world and were responsible for the death and harm of so many cars in the process of achieving their goal. But as much as we all hate the Lemon Cars, they were victims of misfortune, and that misfortune quickly turned them to the dark side. Before the Lemon Cars hated everyone, everyone hated the Lemon Cars because they were ugly, old, and rusty vehicles. They made fun of them for their looks and were ashamed of the type of cars they were. So in response to this, the Lemons decided to turn evil to not only revenge for how other cars treated them, but to also make all other cars need them. The Lemon Cars simply wanted to be useful to the world. And that is the case with individuals that society casts away. Outcasts like the Lemon Car gang are ripped from love, care, and affection by everyone around them, and on most occasions turn them to evil and crime because that is the easiest way to gain attention. But the discrimination of the Lemon Cars isn't the only type we see in the movies. Number 3, gender barrier in professional sports. Discrimination against women in sports is a serious problem in the world, and Pixar made sure to clearly highlight this problem in the Cars movies. To start with, across all 3 movies, we are only introduced to 2 women race cars, Cruz Ramirez in Cars 3, and Carla Veloso, a Brazilian race car that takes part in the World Grand Prix in Cars 2. It's quite sad, among the hundreds of race cars that we see in the movies, we can only point out 2 females, and from which only 1 played a major role. But what is even sadder is that this is a true portrayal of how women are underrepresented in real-life world sports. They are always presented as incapable and unable to perform on the same levels as men. It is always triple the struggle for a woman to become a star athlete, and even when they manage to become stars, the industry is almost never good to them. In Cars 3, we can see how poorly Mr. Sterling treats Cruz during his time as the owner of Rusty's Racing Company. He doesn't let her come to watch the races live, talks about how her place is in the race center training the rookies, and when McQueen decides to back out of the race, he almost stops her from competing just because he feels she is not capable. But sometimes, competing can feel really pointless. Number 4, competition is the second most important part of sports. We have already mentioned how annoying and ego Lightning McQueen was at the start of Cars. The only thing he cared about was winning, and during the first Piston Cup race, he lost his tires and still managed to win with his tongue. That's how focused he was on finishing first. But after he crashed in Radiator Springs and learned under Doc Hudson, aka the fabulous Hudson Hornet, he realizes that at some point the competition will end for good, and what would matter is how he competed as a race car. Doc is a symbol of what happens when competition becomes everything. After he managed to be put together after his crash, the racing world had already discarded him, leaving him without the only thing he valued most: competition. During the final Piston Cup race between McQueen, the King, and Chick Hicks, McQueen showed that humanity and good sportsmanship is much more important than any win. He gives up the win to save the King after he crashes, and at the end, his sacrifice gained more attention and respect from fans than Chick Hicks' Piston Cup win. But sometimes, it isn't just about racing. Number 5, the need to slow down. In the first Cars movie, everything about Lightning McQueen was fast, reckless, and mannerless. But what is even more shocking is that everybody loved him for that. They loved the way he was rude to his pit crew members, and the way he talked trash about his opponents, because it gave them what to talk about, and at the same time, what to make money from in reports and news articles. However, when McQueen finds himself in the small, quiet Radiator Springs, life slows down literally and figuratively. When matter frees him to serve his sentence, he tries to do what he knows best, speed out of his troubles, but even his hardest pedal step couldn't get him out of Radiator Spring. In there, he learned about real human connection and how real individual relationships mattered. Radiator Springs is small, but is filled with different characters that know themselves and understand themselves, and not until McQueen understood the real value of togetherness in the smallest of communities, he couldn't leave Radiator Springs. In reality, the fast life is fun and thrilling, and despite all of the technological advancements and what seems like an easier life in corporate and urban America, the true meaning of life's values are best felt when we slow down. I know we all have goals and targets that keep us going and active all the time, but sometimes we just have to actually slow down like McQueen and live life. Enjoy all of the simple and beautiful things like the sky, the singing birds, and flowers around us. These little things are what really make life life. Number 6, the consequences in the environment of urbanization. Still on Radiator Springs, one of the most important and heartbreaking things we learned from the small town was the death of its once iconic Route 66. When McQueen ends up in Radiator Spring, he meets a deserted and empty town, but this town wasn't always like this. It used to be a hotspot for travelers to cool off and get replenished during their journeys, and what connected these people to Radiator Springs was Route 66, also known as the Main Street of America. Route 66 was one of the first paved roads in the country, and it served as not only a passage, but a cultural pathway for the travelers and the indigenous people. However, when the faster Interstate 40 highway was built, the Route 66 road slowly became abandoned, isolated, and empty. With time, a lot of people began to leave Radiator Springs as their business started falling apart as well as the town. Radiator Springs slowly faded away until it was completely erased from the maps. This is the reality of a lot of big urban projects in real life. As much as they are beneficial to life and make life easier, we lose some of the most important things in life: culture, heritage, and community. But the thing with legacy is that the world won't wait for you to build it. The next message reveals how one person's legacy can echo through generations and change the world. Number 7, the significance of mentorship and legacy. Another very interesting message in the Cars movies is how important legacy and what we leave behind is. In the movie, Doc Hudson mentors McQueen and helps him break through his negative traits: pride, purposelessness, and impatience. Particularly, Doc Hudson teaches McQueen his iconic counter-steering technique, turn left to go right, that eventually helps McQueen to make it through his Piston Cup final. A couple of years and 2 movies later, we see McQueen in a similar situation, but this time he plays the role of mentor for Cruz Ramirez, who similarly needed a breakthrough from her fear, timidness, and lack of self-belief. Mentorship in Cars became a symbol of freedom and maturity. Just like McQueen and Cruz needed people to look up to, in life we all need individuals to lead and direct us, whether directly or not. At the same time, being a mentor means taking up responsibility, and to do so, we need to drop whatever is holding us back. In Hudson's case, he had to go against his stereotype against race cars, and in McQueen's case, he realized that rather than chase his revival, starting something new would be much more beneficial to the race world. Being a mentor helps leave your personal legacy. The famous turn left to go right became Doc's legacy, and we see it flow down to McQueen and then Cruz. Imagine Doc never taught McQueen that move and allowed it to die because of his dislike of race cars. But the thing with legacy is that the world won't wait for you to build it. Number 8, life won't wait to replace you. One very clear message that the Cars movies passed was how fast the world moves on from people. Success, fame, attention, all of these things are temporary, and once your star starts going out, the search for the next person to fill in your vacuum starts. Doc Hudson's case is the perfect example. In his prime years, he was the best that there was. He won 3 Piston Cups, raced on an unbeatable level, and was a star that everybody adored. Because of how unbelievably Doc raced, they nicknamed him the Fabulous Hudson Hornet. But after he fell off as a result of his crash, they pushed him aside and made way for the new generation. They treated Doc like he didn't mean anything. No grand send-offs or acknowledgement for his contributions to the sport. He was only a tool that served them for that period. This was the same case with McQueen in the third Cars movie. When new generation race cars like Jackson Storm came into the scene, everyone was super quick to count him out. Mr. Sterling kept pressuring him to retire in order to make way to fit in new generation race cars into his team. This is the same Lightning McQueen that was worshipped during his rookie season. He was the greatest in his generation, but immediately he dropped a bit. The next talks were of his replacement. It is really unfortunate, but in real life, these things actually happen. The world is an ungrateful place, and people move on really quickly. So to really achieve true fulfillment, it is best we live our lives for ourselves and try to leave our marks in good ways, no matter what. While the world rushes to replace you, there's something far more important than reaching your destination. In this next message, Pixar completely changes how you should approach every goal in your life. Number 9, the journey matters more than the destination. This particular message is one I resonate with. A lot of times we get obsessed with end results, and because of that, we tend to suffer from burnouts or get bored of whatever we do. McQueen's detour to Radiator Springs was the perfect representation of how every step in life matters. Initially, the only thing on his mind was getting to Los Angeles for his Piston Cup final, and this blinded McQueen from what he was actually witnessing, a dying city that needed his help, and that was going to be the source of a very important part of his career. When we focus so much and obsess about where we are going to, we take our hands off the steering wheel, and in the process, crash the process of our dreams. To achieve a goal, one needs to feel every process and step that they go through in pursuit of that goal. Number 10, class warfare. Whether openly or low-key, there were several instances that the reality of classism was portrayed in the Cars franchise. One of these instances was in the first film, when McQueen is brought to address rusty cars by Rusty and Dusty. You can see the obvious discomfort and tries his best to not make any contact with the rusty cars. Video link. This is a clear show of discrimination as the rusty cars are sort of lower class in the car universe. McQueen is obviously disgusted that he, a flashy race car, has to relate with them. He also makes it a goal to leave the Rusty's racing company to the more luxurious Dinoco, despite Rusty's giving him his big break. The lower class are always deserted and abandoned, and we see this with the residents of Radiator Springs, who are mostly blue-collar workers and small business owners. As important as their businesses and presence was in building a moral society, they were quickly abandoned at the expense of the more high cadre race cars, all in the name of progress. Despite all these harsh realities of class, discrimination, and abandonment, the Cars trilogy ends with the most hopeful message of all. Number 11, second chances. Second chances was another message that was portrayed all over the Cars movies. First, we have Doc Hudson, whose career seemed like a forgotten fairy tale. But with McQueen's arrival in Radiator Springs, he was given the chance to revive his racing legacy. Although he couldn't go back to the racetracks, he brought his name back to the limelight by mentoring McQueen and allowed himself to forgive the racing world that shattered his heart. Strip Weathers also got a second chance, and luckily his was immediate. Right after his Piston Cup crash, it seemed like he was going to end up the same as Doc did, but by the grace of McQueen, he was given the chance to finish his race. With McQueen, he was given many second chances to find purpose after trying to flee Radiator Springs multiple times, a second chance with Sally Carrera, and finally a second chance to give his career a meaningful ending through Cruz Ramirez. Thanks for watching, but now that I have explained all the hidden messages in Cars for you, you might want to know more about their villains too. Click here to check that one out and make sure to subscribe to my channel.